What's up, everybody? So in past videos, I've talked about workflow, and I've talked about it in sort of a, I guess you could call it a theory crafting sense. I've said basically it's something you've kind of got to figure out on your own, and it sort of is something you do have to figure out for yourself, how you want, what you want things to, how you want everything to work, because not everybody thinks the same way about all the processes, and certainly not everybody's situation is going to be the same with what they're dealing with. You know, you deal with on-camera audio or two-system audio or etc. That kind of thing. You're going to have different requirements. So in this episode, or in this video, I'm going to talk about workflow again, but I'm not going to talk about theory crafting quite as much as I'm going to actually look at a specific little segment of my own workflow. And what I'm going to be looking at is the process I go through between exporting from my NLE and uploading to YouTube. Now, this comes with a number of situation being what it is type of things. Like, this is not necessarily what everybody's going to want to do. Modern NLEs such as Premiere Pro and DaVinci Resolve have built-in presets in them for export that you plug in your YouTube username and ID, and they will upload directly to your YouTube channel for you. However, I have some, and that's a perfectly good solution, I should say. That should work really well for a lot of people. However, I have some, I would call them mitigating factors. The biggest one for me is bandwidth. I don't have a tremendous amount of upload bandwidth, and so anything I can do to save on my uploads or on how much data I have to upload, is going to help me substantially when it comes to how much time it takes to upload and how much bandwidth gets used in the process of uploading. So I'm working on a asymmetric DSL line. I only have about 1 megabit worth of upload, which for a lot of things is perfectly fine, but for uploading a video to YouTube, obviously it can take an awful long time. Additionally, I don't consider, I have some storage constraints. I don't have a massive, like 100,000 terabyte server or storage array, as some YouTubers might. And even if I did, there's issues with backups. Generally, and all told, I just want to be efficient. I want my files, especially for YouTube videos, to be kind of as small as they can be without being inefficient or incapable of providing the quality or holding the quality that I need. So one way to go about doing this is to use a more efficient compression algorithm, a more efficient codec. And as far as video codecs go right now, one of the better options for more efficient is H.265 or HEVC. That has some caveats with it. It's, in my experience, I get files that are between 50 and 70% smaller, 50 to 60% smaller for the equivalent or better image quality or video quality compared to H.264 or AVC. So that immediately cuts my upload times, like in half. So a video that I would have compressed in AVC and uploaded to YouTube might have been, say, around a gigabyte and a quarter for a 20-ish to 30-ish minute video. Going to HEVC, I've cut that down in many cases to about 500 meg or thereabouts. So that's a huge savings in terms of upload bandwidth. It's also a huge savings in terms of storage on my disk. I don't consider YouTube to be a backup. There's too many things with respect to like YouTube where they can delete videos and it's irrecoverable. You never have the ability to pull them down if they decided to delete a video or terminate your account and delete videos. I mean, not that I'm overly worried about YouTube deleting videos, but I don't consider that to be a permanent storage solution. Having control of my videos and my data locally is a permanent storage solution, at least for me. So I keep a copy of the rendered output that I would have uploaded to YouTube as a backup copy of the video. And in some cases, I may only keep that rendered output and not the source files that went into creating the video in the first place. So that's storage locally, that's upload to YouTube being more efficient, using less bandwidth, etc. What's the con of H.265? Well, the biggest con of H.265 is it's slow. Even on, on either my server or my workstation, so I have a quad-core 8-thread 3.8 gigahertz Xeon server and a 6-core 12-thread 4.5 gigahertz workstation. On either of those machines, with the settings that I'm using, and I don't claim to be an expert in what the best settings for H.265 are, but with the settings I'm using to get the compression levels that I'm getting, I get 8 to 8.5 frames per second on my server, and I got maybe 10 frames per second on my workstation. It works out to be, or maybe 10 to 12 frames per second on my workstations, somewhere in that range. It works out to be essentially a third of real time for a video. So if I shoot a video, it's 24 frames a second. I go to encode it. The encoding process runs at about 8.5 frames a second. So if I shoot a 30-minute video, I can expect an hour and a half roughly for encoding. Now, obviously, I could do that on my computer, and it takes 100% of the CPU time, and while the computer is encoding the video, I can't really put an awful lot of focus on anything else super processor intensive, like rendering another video or working on the next video or compiling code for an electronics project around photography or something like that. Or, I mean, even just kicking back and playing a game while the thing's running on my workstation. So there's not an awful lot of, the compute process is very render intensive. So, the render process is very compute intensive. So I want to get it off my computer if I can. My server, on the other hand, it basically just sits idle. It serves files, it holds my videos, I use it as a backup target, that kind of thing, but it doesn't actively, the CPU isn't actively running under any substantial or any load really, other than like if I manually kicked off a process in the past to, recompress a video or something like that. So being able to shift the render load from my workstation to the server, it was a big deal for me. It's a big deal for me. It lets me free up compute time on the computer that I use and put that compute time on the server that isn't being used for compute work. So there's a couple of, obviously, like I said, workflow is a user-specific thing. It's something you have to figure out sort of and find out for yourself. So I can do this because I have a server that's a full-blown Xeon-based server running a full Linux distribution with all the capabilities that come with that. If your server is really just a NAS, then, like a Synology or something to that extent, with limited processing capability that's just really designed to serve files, then obviously you wouldn't be able to do this. If you didn't have, if you were a Mac user and were running sort of Mac server software, some of what I'm doing, or a lot of what I'm doing, you could actually do, but how you would implement it would be different, and it's not something that I can really get into because it's not something that I have any real experience with. So what I'm going to show in this video briefly is my export, process, and upload workflow. And it's really super simple. I'm not going to get, however, into the technical weeds, so to speak. I'm not going to show you how to set it up. If there's interest in that, I will make another video on that and provide the source code that I'm using, which I'm planning on. A lot of this, I should say, the glue that holds all of this together is software that I wrote for myself But if there's interest in this, please make a note in the comments, say something, and I will focus, or I will work on putting together a video to actually show the installation configuration of this software, and I will make sure to really focus to ensure that I get the code, make the code available so that somebody who wants to run this or use this can download it. So, or have access to it. So, as far as tools go, like I said, well, actually, why don't we just jump onto the computer and take a look at what the software does and how I interact with it, and then I'll come back and we'll wrap up some conclusions. All right, so we're here in the export page in DaVinci Resolve 16, which is the NLE I'm currently using. Although any NLE that can export to essentially an intermediate file is perfectly functional, perfectly fine for this, this process. The file I'm exporting is nothing especially special. It's an MXF file, videos compressed with DNX HRHQ. I'm doing 1080p and so on and so forth. And about the only thing that's really interesting in a sense with respect to my workflow is that I'm exporting to a folder on my mounted or on my file server. It's mounted, it's shared as a Windows file share, and that's where all the magic happens. And so, basically from my NLE's perspective, all I'm really doing is saving a file to the file share on my server. It's not especially interesting. Where things get interesting is the share on the file server. So I have that open here in this Explorer window, and there's a number of folders that are here, these YT converts and these 5D 4K video things. And these folders are the plugin system that I've written for this process. So I can, it's very easy to extend to process videos the way you want or need to have them processed. So for example, the 5D to 4K to 1080p stuff, or the 5D 4K stuff, will take the 5D, the 5D produces 500 megabit 16 or 17 by 9 aspect ratio 4K video, so it's DCI 4K. And for most applications, I either need it in UHD or I want to downsample it to 1080p. And so I could just drop a file in there from my camera and it'll process it down to something that's more manageable. And all of these convert to AVC as opposed to HEVC, but I mean, that's whatever. But these three here, the YouTube convert, YouTube upload, convert and upload, and YouTube upload, are sort of the focus of what I'm talking about here. So what I can do is I can drop a MXF file either saved out of my NLE or drop an MXF file like that I've created somewhere else or that's stored somewhere else into one of these folders and have the computer automatically detect it, process it, and pick it up. So if I switch the screen or the recording over to looking at the output of the logging for this service, and I drop this tungsten, the tungstenintro.mxf file that I had in the parent folder in, say, the YouTube convert folder. So there is always something to be said about ensuring your demo works before you actually start the demo. Anyway, as I was saying, if I drop this, the tungsten, so if I switch back to my main display, this tungsten MXF file, if I drop that tungsten intro MXF file into the YouTube convert folder, you'll see it pops up here that it's converting the file from the tungstenintro.mxf, and what it's doing is it's using my HEVC settings, it's normalizing the audio for YouTube, it's converting everything, and then when it's done, it will send me an email, which I'm not going to show, but it will send me an email that shows me that tells me that the file's been converted, tells me how large the converted file is, and tells me how long it expects to take to upload on my YouTube or my internet connection to YouTube. And so all of this can be done. I can drop an hour, 2-hour long file into being converted, or especially using the convert and upload. But I can drop a huge file in terms of time that it would take into that, have it convert and upload, and go through that whole process, and basically just get an email when it's done, and then I can log into my YouTube account and set titles and the description and so on and so forth. And I don't have to, mess with the ins and outs of sitting here with the upload process. In fact, I can turn my computer off and, not have it be on at all and let the server take care of things, so I don't have to have a machine running, my workstation running all the time, or like I said, I can go on to work on another project, another video, something else like that. Okay, so I know that was kind of super high level and kind of like why should anybody care? Like I said, part of this is I was just super stoked that I got all this to work. I don't write tremendous amounts of code, and I didn't want to go into the programming side of it in this kind of video, but I did want to put it out there as an example for somebody who's looking for a technique for a post-process, how to get things on YouTube. Part of what makes me, or why I'm so stoked about this has tremendously simplified my post-export workflow. I drop it in a folder, it's gone, it's done. The software takes care of it. I don't have to worry about things. Before, I was, uploading through the browser on my laptop because it was the lowest power machine that I had. I could let it run all day or all night when it needed to. But I was running into issues with like failed uploads, or the laptop would power itself off and that would kill the upload, or things like that. And with this, the software I'm using for uploading is supposedly takes care of making sure to restart the upload if it detects that it's failed. I haven't had a problem yet. I've uploaded a couple videos with it. But the big thing for me really just comes down to being able to dump a file on the server and move on until I get an email that says, hey, everything's ready. You just have to, go in, set the title, set the publish date, add description, etc. Well, like I said, if there's interested in digging into how to set this up, I can put together a video walking through the basic process. I'm not going to show you how to install Linux, but if you have a little bit of a semblance of like how to get Linux working, I can put a video up how to get most of this working. The only thing I can't really walk you through, and there's some just tutorials out there, is the YouTube data API from Google, and that's largely because I've struggled trying to get it to work with my credentials and so forth, and then I finally got it to work, and I have no real idea how I got it to work or what I did. So again, if there's interest especially in that part, I may be able to try and put something together to look at what the exact details of how to get that to work were or are. But as I said, I'm also looking to make the code available either through my website or something. I'm not quite ready yet. It's not fully polished from a release perspective. It's polished enough that it works for me. But if there's interest in again, setting this up, or how to set this up, or the code itself or whatnot, please leave a comment, let me know, and I will be more than happy to work towards getting that higher on the priority list, let's say. Getting that higher on the priority list to publish the source code and put a video together on how to do this, how to get this to work or set up. So if you found this interesting, or at least mildly, an idea for how to do something yourself, please smash the like button. For more content on video creation, gear, techniques, the post-process, my experience going from basically knowing nothing about doing video to shooting video on a regular basis for YouTube and building out onto that into bigger things, please consider subscribing to my channel. Additionally, if you're into written content on camera gear, travel, kinds of gear to take, what kind of pictures you can get or whatnot in various places, please check out my website at pointsandfocus.com. I will put a link in the description below. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time.